Part 1. You will hear a woman asking her friend about what to expect when joining a piano club. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
Hi, Brian. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
I wanted to talk to you because Amy mentioned you've joined a piano group, and it sounds fascinating. I've been thinking about learning too, actually.
Why don't you come along? I'm sure there's space for one more.
Really? Who's in charge of the classes?
The instructor is Lisa Herringway.
Let me jot that down. Lisa. How do you spell her last name?
It's Harringway.
Got it, thanks.
She used to be a professional pianist, but recently moved into teaching.
Great. So how long have you been attending?
About a month now. Do you have any knowledge about playing piano?
Well, I used to own a piano when I was younger, so I think I would remember most of the basics. It's been a while, but I think I can pick it up again.
Ah, you'll be fine then. The class is open to multiple levels, so there will be both beginners as well as students with more experience.
That's comforting to hear. So, where do you usually meet?
We gather at the community center on Pine Avenue.
I know that area. I attended drama classes there during secondary school. I haven't been back in years. Is it near Oak Street?
You're right. It's just around the corner from there, actually.
Yes, of course.
The piano sessions take place on the second floor in room 204.
Okay, and when do you meet? Is it over the weekend?
We meet on Fridays for 50 minutes.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10. Now listen carefully and answer the questions 6 to 10.
Right, so is there anything that I need to bring?
Well, the community center obviously provides the pianos, but you might want to think about your favorite song so the teacher knows your style of music.
What's a typical session like with Lisa?
She begins with 5 minutes of warming up your fingers with some exercises. These exercises help with improving strength and flexibility.
Got it.
For the next 10 minutes, we'll be focusing on learning the order of basic chords. This helps you to notice the different patterns and get more familiar with how music flows on the piano.
Is that done with sheet music?
Yes, she provides sheet music for everyone.
That makes it simpler.
Next, Lisa guides us on where to place our fingers. We usually spend about 10 minutes here. Sometimes the difficult part is maintaining the rhythm while you play.
Oh, that's tricky. How do you figure that part out?
One of the ways she helps is to share color counting chips. It helps a lot because it visually breaks down the number of beats in each note.
Do you practice any specific songs?
We do. That part of the lesson usually takes about 15 minutes. We play short tunes with simple melodies, though it's more challenging than it looks.
I'm sure it is. What about improvisation? Is there any time to play around more freely?
Yes. In the final 10 minutes, we'll do some free practice to understand more about the notes and chords we've just learned.
That sounds very creative. What does it involve?
We try playing the notes and chords in different orders to hear how they sound together. Sometimes we even attempt to create our own simple tunes.
Well, it all sounds very interesting, Brian. I'll definitely look into joining.
Give it a shot. I think you'll like it. Okay, see you at lunch.
Part 2.
Goodbye.
You will hear a presentation given by an engineering student who volunteered for the Royal Flying Doctor Service, which provides emergency healthcare to rural Australia. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 16. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 16.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hamish Taylor, and I'm excited to share my experience volunteering with the Royal Flying Doctor Service. Let me start with a little about myself. I grew up in a small town in the Flinders Ranges and later moved to Adelaide to study aeronautical engineering. Despite now living in the city, I still feel connected to my rural roots. This connection greatly influenced my decision to join the RFDS. Growing up in the countryside, I saw firsthand the amazing work that the Royal Flying Doctor Service did for our community. This gave me a personal connection to their mission and a strong desire to volunteer with them. It was the perfect way to combine my love for aviation with helping healthcare in remote areas. Now, the RFDS is one of the largest aerial medical providers in the world, making contact with over 330,000 patients every year. It covers over 90% of Australia's rugged landmass, which includes some of the most remote and isolated regions in the nation. Founded in 1928, it is a crucial part of Australia's healthcare system. To join their team, I had to show that I could handle the unique challenges of the role, which demanded adaptability and the ability to stay strong in tough situations. Part of the selection process involved various exercises to test these skills. For one task, I took part in an exercise where I dealt with a simulated emergency situation, just like what could happen in real life. This required quick problem solving to manage resources well and adapt to changes on the spot. I was fortunate to have developed these skills during my engineering studies, especially through projects like managing the design of a remote-controlled aircraft. Once I was accepted into the volunteering role, I started with a training program. The first phase covered basic emergency medical procedures and safety rules. We practiced in simulated environments that were similar to the challenges of providing medical care in the air and remote areas. I also joined workshops on how to communicate and work as a team in high-pressure situations. These included role-playing exercises, where we coordinated with medical professionals and pilots to ensure everything ran smoothly under time limits. In my volunteer role, I mostly supported the dedicated nurses and doctors. My main duties were on the ground, managing logistics and handling administrative tasks to keep everything running smoothly behind the scenes. However, I did get the exciting chance to shadow the medical staff and pilots on a few flights. This gave me a first-hand look at the detailed work involved in in-flight medical care and the coordination needed between medical and aviation teams. I learned about managing patient care in tight spaces and how medical tools and supplies work at high altitudes.
Before you hear the rest of the audio, you have some time to look at questions 17 to 20. Now, listen carefully and answer the questions 17 to 20.
Looking back on this experience, I have grown significantly, both personally and professionally. I've learned a lot about emergency medical responses, as well as how to stay calm and effective in high-pressure situations. Also, I've gained knowledge about how aviation works in difficult situations, and now better understand the careful planning and teamwork needed in air transport. But most importantly, what stands out is the sense of fulfillment I've gained from this work. I'll never forget the gratitude shown by a community member after we organised timely medical care for their family. Seeing the dedication of the medical teams and connecting with those we serve has been incredibly rewarding. In closing, volunteering with the RFDS has strengthened my commitment to using my aviation skills for the greater good. If anyone is considering a similar path, I encourage you to go for it. You won't regret it. Thank you for your
Part
attention,
3.
everyone.
You will hear That is two the end of students part on a 2. computer science course, Blake and Alyssa, discussing their presentation on the topic of cybersecurity threats. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 24. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 24.
Hi, Blake. Did you receive the article I sent you about cybersecurity threats?
Yes, I went through it this morning. You know, before reading the article, I thought these threats mostly targeted the older generation, given that they have less experience using technology.
That's a common misunderstanding. While older adults are indeed targeted, the threats affect everyone. For example, teenagers are also vulnerable to these attacks since they frequently use social media.
Right? I see what you mean.
I noticed that the article mentioned the importance of keeping an eye on your software since skipping updates can make us vulnerable.
Interestingly, the article highlighted that recognizing phishing attacks is still crucial. It pointed out that clicking on certain links can often lead to a scammer tricking you into giving away personal information.
Good point.
It also looked like some users still don't realize that how you act online is also a major risk factor.
Exactly. What surprised me was how many people use the same password for different accounts. You'd think that changing passwords would be an easy way to stay safe.
That's true. The article also talked about how hackers are becoming more skilled. However, they said this is not really the main reason for cyber attacks.
Right, and it looks like a company's failure to update their system could lead to problems too, but they didn't say as much about that.
No, they didn't. The article also talked about the biggest financial risks somewhere. Let me see. They talked about data breaches and how fixing damage from attacks costs companies a lot of money.
Yeah, but they weren't really specific about the numbers for those events, were they? It looked as though the biggest hit comes from the ransom money companies might have to pay.
Right? And how attackers seem to be demanding more and more money nowadays.
Okay, I think we have enough for this part.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 25 to 30. Now listen carefully and answer the questions 25 to 30.
It's interesting how we often hear about people complaining that their accounts were accessed without permission. I guess that's what happens with credential theft, right?
Absolutely. The article mentioned how using the same passwords for different accounts can really make you vulnerable. If somebody gets hacked, it's like leaving the door to your home unlocked at night.
Oh, that's a scary thought. How about those phishing attacks? They've become quite advanced. Simply clicking on an unknown link can lead to a thief getting a hold of your personal information.
I know. Sometimes the emails or messages seem so real, it's hard to tell the difference between those and the genuine ones.
Ransomware is another one people often bring up. Ignoring update alerts, though it seems minor, actually makes it harder for systems to defend against these attacks.
Right. And while system downtime resulting from these attacks isn't as common, it certainly impacts businesses significantly when it happens.
Totally. Speaking of risks, sharing details on sites that aren't secure can definitely lead to data breaches. Once your information is out there, it could be a real headache.
So let's discuss what the article said about the effects of a cybersecurity threat on businesses. You know, I remember them emphasizing unauthorized account access as a major issue. It's a problem because once someone gets in, they can do a lot of damage.
Let's see. What else did they say? Ah, yes. They talked about how system downtime can lead to serious effects given that they need to maintain their operations 24/7.
Yes, you're definitely correct. However, if you look at the figures highlighted in this section, it says that unauthorized access has been impacting more businesses on a regular basis lately.
Got it. Well, that's about it for the threats and effects. So, for our project, are we still thinking of looking at a few case studies to highlight these issues?
I think that would be a good approach. A few solid examples can really help illustrate the points we're making.
All right then. Let's do some research to seek out some case studies that we can include in our presentation.
Of course, it would also be interesting to interview an expert in the field. However, I think this is beyond the scope of this project, since the deadline is the end of next week.
Agreed. It would require a bit too much coordination, and we'd need to analyze the interviews later. That might be something we can touch on in a future assignment.
Good idea. Let's stick to the case studies. Should we meet at the library tomorrow afternoon then?
Sure, I'm free after 3 p.m. I'll see you then.
See you later,
Part 4.
Blake.
That is you will hear a student talking about their university research project on the pangolin, which is currently facing the potential threat of extinction. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40.
For my research project on mammals, I chose to focus on the pangolin, a remarkable and unique creature that continues to face a major threat to its survival. Let me start by telling you a bit about pangolins. They belong to the order Pholidota, which includes 8 species, 4 in Asia and 4 in Africa. Perhaps their most recognizable feature is their scales, which are made of thick layers of keratin, the same protein found in human hair and nails. This really sets them apart from other species. The pangolin is primarily an insectivore, meaning that its diet consists mainly of ants and termites. In fact, they have evolved in a specific way to support this diet by developing long, sticky tongues. These tongues extend far beyond the length of their bodies to capture insects effectively. Also, the way they eat, combined with their nocturnal habits, means they are most active at night, quietly foraging for their next meal. Another interesting feature of pangolins is their ability to curl into a ball. This provides them with a form of defense against common predators, like big cats. In Africa, these include lions and leopards, while in Asia, tigers are the main natural predators. However, predators have learned to use their strength and sharp claws to overcome the pangolin's defense, occasionally managing to pry them open when they curl into a ball. In terms of habitat, pangolins are quite adaptable. They thrive in a range of environments, from dense forests to open grasslands and savannas, across the continents of Africa and Asia. Also, they often reside in burrows, which they dig themselves, or they make homes in hollow trees, relying on these settings for shelter and protection from predators. Despite all of this, it is clear that the largest threat stems from human activities. Unfortunately, they now find themselves in the position of being listed as the most trafficked mammals in the world. This trend has emerged due to the high demand for their meat and scales, especially in Asian markets like China and Vietnam. Their meat is considered a delicacy, and their scales are prized in traditional medicine, believed by some to have various health benefits, although there is no scientific evidence supporting these claims. The level of the illegal trade of pangolins is staggering, shown by the many times authorities have taken back possession of huge amounts of scales. In fact, in recent years, they have confiscated scales weighing tens of tons. Governments and international groups have been hesitant to share exact numbers because they worry it might increase illegal trade. Having said that, it is now widely believed that millions of pangolins have been poached over the past decade, leading to a dramatic decline in their population. The impact on pangolin populations worldwide is severe. For instance, Asian species such as the Chinese and Sunda pangolins have witnessed declines of over 90% in various regions due to continuous poaching. As these populations fall, there is an increasing shift towards African pangolins as targets, putting all species at risk. Such pressures mean that pangolins are now listed on the IUCN Red List, with statuses ranging from vulnerable to critically endangered. In response to this crisis, various conservation efforts are underway to protect these animals. According to international law, there is now a worldwide ban on trading this endangered animal. I should say that conservation organizations are doing their best to fight against illegal trafficking through better enforcement of wildlife protection laws and by raising awareness about the species struggle. Also, these groups are working tirelessly to restore the pangolin's habitat and rehabilitate them when they are rescued in the wild. Looking forward, the road to recovery for pangolins is long and uncertain. The success of conservation efforts heavily relies on continued global cooperation, effective law enforcement, and most importantly, changing public attitudes and behaviors that drive the demand for pangolin products. However, looking on the bright side, there is indeed hope for the pangolin. Through dedicated conservation action and international cooperation, we can protect this extraordinary mammal. So, does anybody have any questions?
That is the end of part 4. That is the end of part 4. That is the end of part 4.